Yeah, I'm Shawn Apostle. I'm an assistant professor of communication at Bellarmine University. Yeah, I guess I started out my career, I guess, in education, studying graphic design technology, and being a graphic designer for a few years. I really liked that work. I didn't have the theoretical background that I really needed to be assertive in my design choices. Like, I knew I had good design, but I got tired of losing the fight over my design, and I was just the monkey. I was the monkey that could use the computer. And I got really tired of the suits, was what I call them, the suits coming in and telling me to move something here or there. And it was very frustrating for me as a graphic designer with no theoretical background. So when I had the opportunity, I went to school, went to university full-time, studied journalism, because it was the only career path that I saw that would take my graphic design but also add to it. So I could lay out a newspaper, and I could write for the newspaper, and I could photograph for the newspaper. So I could kind of do a bunch of things that I enjoyed doing. I liked that a lot. I graduated, got a job as a reporter, did that for a couple years. Really liked it. Moved up to news editor, and I remember I won an award for a photo that I took. I won a few awards, but I remember this one award it was a picture of Governor Roy Barnes of Georgia, and he was just signing legislation, like a really boring shot. And I was there with a bunch of Associated Press people, and everyone was taking pictures like crazy. And I'm kind of like the sniper picture guy. Like, I take a couple pictures that I think they're going to be really good at an event like that. And I was like watching him, and I took the standard, like, he's signing something, and I waited for him to do something different. And one of the kids said something, and it made him laugh. And he like popped his head up and laughed while he was signing, and all these kids are looking at him, and I took the shot. And like right away I was like, that's the shot. I know I got it. And as I was getting the award for that shot, I kept thinking to myself, I can't explain why that's a good. I know it's a good shot. I felt it in my gut. But everyone else followed the rules of third and had adequate lighting, and the depth was about the same in every shot. So what was it about mine that really resonated with people? And so that's when I knew I had to go get a master's degree. So I looked all around. Clemson University had a degree called professional communication, which would let you dabble in visual. And I was like, well, let me do that. Visual is still pretty new in terms of not journalism. So there was a journalism, visual communication, and then there was more of this kind of heavy theory side. And I was kind of interested in that. So I got my master's degree in professional communication. I was a research assistant for a pretty successful academic, Art Young, who started writing across the curriculum, poetry across the curriculum. And I remember sitting in his office every day and watching him work, and publishers would come in and talk to him, and students would come in, and successful people who were former students would come in. And I remember thinking, I'd like to do that. I think that would be a good way that's a good line of work. And so talked to him, and I got a PhD in rhetoric and technical communication at Michigan Tech with the idea of becoming an academic. And when I first finished, I was kind of burned out of the academic life. So I got a job working as a graphics and information specialist for city government, where I got to do all kinds of stuff, really fun things, big events, websites, multimedia events, social media stuff. I liked it a lot, but after a couple years of that, I really started missing the academic life again. I just like being around young people, younger than me who still have dreams and hopes. It's very easy sometimes to get kind of weighed down if you're in the corporate world and everyone's like, we're living for the weekend. And I don't like that. I like meeting people who have big goals, and I want to be a part of that and help them achieve that. Okay, first thing is be media agnostic. I know a lot of people are like, I love video, that's all I want to do, and it's like, that's great, but work at communicating in a wide range of options. You don't know what's coming next, so keep an open mind. And then I don't know if this is a skill, but be curious. I think curious people do a lot better in this field. People who are willing to pick something up and see how it works and look at how other people are using it. I think that's a big part of what we do. A lot of times I don't know how to explain that, but I would say that, be curious and be open to new technologies. It's very easy for people to get frustrated when something changes, but in this field, there's a guarantee that it will change. You know communication is going to change. You just know it. And you have to be ready for that.
Can you speak on some of that experience you had with sort of shifting technologies and?
Yeah, well, so I was a reporter when in the year 2000. So I was a reporter. We launched a website in 1999 for the newspaper, and a lot of people were saying that was a waste. It's a waste. Why do that? And I think I look back on that paper, and their website's pretty bad. And so when I get news from that town, I go to the radio station's website, because the radio station has embraced technology. Their news stories are easy to read, easy to find on my phone. And then that old newspaper I work with is still designed for a large browser window. So that'd be one example. Another one is, there's lots of new technology out there, lots of ways of sharing information. So when I remember launching the first Facebook page for an organization, they thought I was a rocket science because I could do it. Now it seems like ridiculous, but back then it was very, very new and very, complicated to people. They were kind of intimidated by it. And there's still like that today. Like today I'm really interested in 3D worlds and augmented reality, virtual reality. I think is going to become more and more, especially augmented reality. I think it's going to be more and more the way we communicate. It's going to be more important to us than it is today. So how do you do it? You try it. You try to figure it out. You stumble, but you get back up and pick up something else and try something different. I think keeping an open mind is really a big part of our field. There's one thing that I shared with my freshman focus students, and they thought it was helpful. And it's just kind of like a life advice that I kind of live by, especially as someone who's had multiple careers and have stayed in college for as long as I did and gone out and gone back and gone out and gone back. My advice is to stay flexible. And the way I'll give you an example. When I was just out of high school, I got a job at Cintas, a uniform company. So you see the Cintas trucks everywhere. I was a quality control specialist. Like I had a group, and we made sure all the buttons were on the shirts and it was ironed. And it was a good job. It paid for my graphic design degree. So I was going to graphic design school, working at Cintas at night, and I was making enough money to live. Whatever, not a lot. They offered me a better job. They offered me a truck driving position, which was like double my pay. And it was like a career move. And I remember looking at the offer and thinking, I won't get paid this as an entry-level graphic designer. I'll get paid kind of what I make here at like on the factory floor as an entry-level graphic designer. And then it'll take me years to work up to this pay, right? A nice portfolio. I'll have to build a good portfolio. So I turned down the job, and everyone thought I was nuts. My family thought I was nuts. They're like, why would you do that? And I was like, I know as soon as I got that paycheck, I'd get a bigger apartment, I'd get a new car, and then I wouldn't be able to take that graphic design job. I wouldn't be able to afford it, the downgrade. So I would say, if you are in the middle of a career and all that, stay lean, stay poor, quote unquote, live poor, and you'll have a lot better options. So I've been to 20 countries, I travel a lot. But the reason why I was able to do that is because I lived below my means for so long. So the other thing is, a lot of times a company will pay you more than you're worth just so you stay. So you take on the extra car payment, you buy that big house, and then that's what your family expects. So be careful. If you're doing that, know that that's what you're going to stay there. If you feel like you might be wanting to go into a totally new field, then be mindful of that. And that would be my life advice, and something that I've tried to live by. As someone with dyslexia, I never really liked reading as a kid. I was always a very slow reader. I think when I first started to love reading was when I got survival manuals. I would pick up a World War II survival manual and I would read it, or a Vietnam survival manual, mainly war stuff for some reason. They were just all over. They were very accessible to me. So I read how to survive at sea, how to survive in the ocean, and that's all technical communication, right? It's taking something that's complicated and sharing it in a way that a kid with dyslexia can find it and read it, right? So that was probably not their target audience, but technical communication really really had its birth in World War II, where you had a total war. You have a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds signing up with various levels of reading comprehension, and now they're using, expensive tools in the field. How do you explain how to use this tool? How do you explain where to stand or where to sit or how to hold this or how to open this? And that's where technical communication really had its kind of big birth. Like, everyone's like, this is important, and it's only really grown since then. It really had its heyday in the 80s with the software companies. You would get Microsoft Word, and it would come with a big book, or DOS, and you would have the manual on how to code in DOS, and that's where it really had a heyday. Today, a lot of good tech comm is really more associated with user interface. Like, does it seem easy to use? Is it intuitive? And so a lot of that tech comm is actually integrated into the way something is designed today. I've been really fascinated with international technical communication. I think that's just really fun and really challenging. How do you explain to your landlord that your toilet's broken if you don't speak the language and you don't know the word for toilet, right? How do you do that? How do you text that to your landlord? That's a fun challenge, right? That's really interesting, and that's something that we get to see hands-on today. We can go and talk to people who are new to our country and trying to figure things out, and we can do some research. We can create products that will help, and we can hopefully make that transition smoother. So I like the practical aspects of it. In terms of visual communication, for my master's and my PhD, I studied military recruitment because it was the war on terror. And I was really fascinated with the way the military uses the human body in military recruitment. When the war on terror started, I noticed that soldiers were sitting at computers and they were learning things that would be beneficial to them in the future. That's what the photos were showing us. But with the war on terror progressing in 2004, there was actually recruitment was dropping off because nobody wanted to sign up for war. It was a tough situation, and the strategy changed. I was studying the Army, and it was Army of One, and around 2004, 2005, they switched to Army Strong, and everyone in these photos were now in combat uniforms with weaponry, and so I was really interested with how people could be shown in combat situations but still look safe, because the photos did not look like Saving Private Ryan, right? They looked very appealing, right? And so that was fascinating to me. That's what I studied. I was really interested in that. And again, that's kind of technical communication in a way too. So how do you show people in images? How does that communicate something to them? you get an IKEA manual, right? You go to IKEA, you buy the bed, and you have the manual. It's all images. There's no words on it, right? And it's designed in a way to persuade you that you can do this. The design itself is a rhetorical piece. So in rhetoric, we're looking at being able to find the available means of persuasion. I'll give you an example. I built dollhouses for my daughters, the big wooden kind, and you get a box, and there's little pieces of wood that you glue together to make the dollhouse, right? And I remember getting this manual out, and the first lines were "Do not panic." And I'm looking at the design, and I'm like, it's designed to make me panic. The font's very small, it's all crammed together, there's addendums and other pieces of paper that are added to it. The design in and of itself evoked a feeling of panic in me. And I knew I could do it. I built them, but that was bad tech comm. Good tech comm gives the directions, yes, but also makes you feel like you can do this. Maybe inspires you to buy it, even though you might not need it, right? That's what good tech comm can do. It can make you feel welcome when you're in a new country, right? It can, it can almost empower, and that's what I find really fascinating about it. I think what I find most compelling about Bellarmine are the wide range of students that we're getting. We have people in the professional fields, people who have just graduated, people who are leveling up, people who are expanding their current knowledge. And I find that environment really unique. I find it very interesting to see how individual strengths can really play a part in the classroom. Because nobody can be can specialize in everything, right? So it's really nice to be in a class where there's students who are all in on coding and web design, or all in on video, and then having them working together and learning from each other, learning from me and learning from each other. I'm learning too sometimes. Like I'm learning, there's always something new that has been developed that I'm getting. So I find that to be a really good strength. And then there's like little things that I really like about Bellarmine. The Wi-Fi. I love the Wi-Fi here. Okay, it's not so good in our classroom all the time, but still, I'll do a Pepsi challenge to any university's Wi-Fi system. The parking's pretty good and affordable. Do you pay for parking? I mean, I don't know. I think I had to pay a lot to park in my graduate programs, and I parked far away. So, I mean, there's little things that I think I love about it. I like this building. I like the one-button studio. That's really fun. The Mac labs, they're almost always empty. You can get in there anytime you want. I think most of us are really approachable too, like most faculty members. I feel that way. I'll go in and talk to anybody. I see students walking around talking to people. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty compelling reason, I think. I think it's a beautiful campus. I've been to many campuses. I think, 9 or 10, either studied or taught at them. This one's really cool. It's a neat campus. And then I remember when I was offered the job here, and I went to a coffee shop because I'm new to Louisville. I went to a coffee shop and I just randomly walked up to people and said, "What do you know about Bellarmine? What do you know about Bellarmine?" And everyone said something very positive about something different. Like, oh, they're really good in the arts, and they great liberal arts university. Oh, they're really, that's a tough school, but man, they have great students, or they do a lot for the community. I mean, I heard all these things, and they're all different aspects of it. And I really appreciated that. And I think finally, one thing that I think is really unique about Bellarmine is its love of the liberal arts. Maybe because I came from engineering schools, but I was always kind of like, well, you can't do real work, so you might as well be in communication. And I'm like, you can be the best scientist in the world, or the best engineer, but if you can't communicate if you can't get those ideas out and inspire people to do those things, then good luck to you, you know? So I was always kind of taken aback by that, and I didn't really appreciate it. And here at Bellarmine, we have people who major in theater, and everyone's like, good for you, be the best at what you do. And I like that a lot. I feel like communication is really important, and we get that. We have respect from our faculty here. Like, they don't look down on us, and we don't look down on them. And I love that about Bellarmine. I think that is really unique. But maybe, like I said, maybe it's because I came out of engineering schools, and I was always treated like the little step kid that, you know, shouldn't have been adopted in the first place, or whatever it was. You know, you're just like, man, I love that about this place, though, about just how welcoming it is. Well, I've never been good at make pretend, and so I never really liked assignments where it was like, pretend like your client is doing a viral video campaign. You know, like, I was like, let's just do it, and let's just work with someone who really needs something. And so I was kind of the guy who would come up to the professor and say, I know you want me to write a 10-page paper about this, but there's a journal. I want to submit something to this journal. Can I write this paper for this journal? You know, I was always that person. And so I was always trying to figure out like a real world audience. And I try to do that as much as I can in the classes. And I think I do a good job. Like, we're either working with the client, or I want you to pull from your own client. You know, what are you doing for a living? Or where would you like to work? How can you get noticed by that person or by that organization? How can you build your portfolio or help the community, or what can you do for real? And I like that about what we're doing. Like in multimedia. In multimedia, we're creating products, but we're also building our portfolios, and we're learning from each other. And so my approach is to kind of maybe be more of a mentor role. I usually am working side by side with students. I want to push everyone to their full potential, and I want to provide an environment where it's okay to take risks, where it's okay to try something you haven't tried, and where failure is not seen as the end. It's a learning experience, and it's something that you can grow from. And I think that's it. What I always tell people, like, the university is kind of your incubator. You know, if you get up and your Prezi link is not working in my class, I'd much rather have that happen to you in my class than you in front of your CEO. You know what I mean? This is where you're like, oh, that didn't work. So now I know that you need to have the share or the present button. That's the link you send, not the edit one, right? Learn that kind of stuff. Learn all those little weird things in a classroom environment where you don't lose your job, you don't have egg on your face, your spouse doesn't leave you, and you lose your car because it got repoed, right? Learn in a place where you can make mistakes and learn from them. And that's what we're trying to do, is provide that kind of environment where you're encouraged to try things that are hard, where you might mess up, but that's okay. Right now, I'm getting into kombucha, making my own. So that's been my thing. I've tried a couple different ones. I like ginger kombucha. So that's been one of the things. I ride a scooter. I love riding my scooter. This is the best weather for it. I try to ride year round, but I don't ride when it gets below 10 degrees anymore. I did the math, and I was like, okay, 45 mile an hour winds. How long at 9 degrees till you get frostbite? And it was like 12 minutes, and I was like, well, it's only a 7-minute commute. I could totally do that. But what I didn't factor in was that my gloves aren't really thick enough, and I tried ski gloves, but I can't shift. So I had thinner gloves, and my fingers would start swelling up because they would start freezing. So yeah, and then they would crack. So like I don't ride below 10 degrees anymore for that reason. Okay, so I've had two encounters, very close encounters with sharks. But I grew up around the ocean, love the ocean. My dad's a surfer. I used to surf better than him, but now I don't because he's retired. That's all he does is surf. So my first encounter was when I was pretty little. I love snorkeling, and we would go out to, I believe it was Fort Lauderdale. I wasn't really location based back then. There was the ocean, I was in it. And I had a mask on and snorkel on, and I was swimming out to a big seaweed patch. And like the best thing in the world, if you're not used to the ocean, is getting underneath a seaweed patch and looking up. There's like little crabs and shrimp. Sometimes you can find baby turtles. So it's a really kind of a dynamic ecosystem, and it's just a floating patch of life. And as it was coming into shore, it was a rather large batch. And so I was just swimming out there, coming up in between the seaweed patch, like little holes that would form. You could stick your head up and breathe, or get a snorkel going. And I could hold my breath for a long time. At the time, I could dive 50 feet down. I could hold my breath for maybe a minute and a half underwater. And so I was under there kind of floating upside down, looking up at the seaweed, and just having a great time. And all of a sudden, I got kicked in the face, like really, really hard. I mean, I thought almost like bloody nose kind of hard. And I came up for air, and I was just about to curse someone out, and I realized that I was all by myself. There was no one in the ocean, and I was probably, I mean, like as a kid, you're like, it's a mile away, like the shore, because I knew something had hit me, and but it was probably a good, length of a football field out, easy. And so my dad told me, if you ever get bumped by a shark, swim underwater like a frog. So I went underwater, swam like a frog, came up for air, went down, swam like a frog, came up for air. All the time thankful that the shark hit my mask and not my ribs or something softer. But that was my first encounter. The other encounter I had was in my kayak. I had a large kayak, really long touring kayak. And I would go out on the weekends all by myself. And it was kind of dumb at the time. Like, I'm thinking about, like, what were you thinking? It's like 24. And I would get my kayak back of the truck, drive out to the Keys, see a key way out in the middle of nowhere and go, I'm going to explore it. And I would kayak out there, go all the way around that key, go on, find the old tombstones and just the random relics of a past civilization or homestead, and sunken boats, all kinds of stuff out there. And I was paddling out to one, and I was pretty far away. I was pretty far out in the ocean, and all of a sudden, I get smashed from underneath. My kayak gets way up into the water. I hit the ocean and try not to tip. I'm like trying to get up, and I look down and I just see this huge tail going straight down. Like I just see it kind of waving down, and had that little notch in it, and I'm like, okay, that was a shark. And it hit me, and I have a soft kayak, so it's coming back. And it was yellow, which is superstition, but I knew that I liked yellow because speedboats could see me. But I also, there's a yum yum yellow. If you're a surfer, you know yum yum yellow. It's a color that we feel might be attractive to sharks. And so I don't know if that's scientifically proven, but every surfer feels that way. It's kind of like you're on a yellow board, you're going to hit by a shark. So here I am in this huge yellow kayak, and for it to hit, it was 9 feet long. So for it to hit me, like it had to be about 9 feet long or longer, right? You don't bite things that are smaller than you, I guess. I don't know. So I didn't want to swim underwater like a frog, so I paddled consistently all the way to shore. I went right to shore, and I hugged that island all day until I felt like it was safe to go back. But that was rather frightening. I was all by myself, and I felt like, great, it's going to bite my kayak. I'm going to be in the water with the shark, far away from, I was far out. So I was really happy that the shark spared me. So I have two shark tattoos, one here and one here, as a thank you for those sharks for not making me their snack. So